Oh hi, you lucky little sausage. Arturia just released an update for the MiniFreak that adds 8 new sample and granular playback engines. And in this video, I'm going to look at each engine in turn, make some sounds and explain what you get in the update, as well as what you don't get yet. Dearly beloved, today we are sponsored by the beautiful people at Source Distribution, my old employer, and the distributors for Arturia. Thanks to them, because I like talking about the MiniFreak. So all of the granular engines live only in oscillator 1. You can't unfortunately run 2 sets of granular engine, I guess a processing issue, but you can run a granular sound in slot 1 and then add other types of sound in slot 2 to thicken them up and build bigger sounds. It's worth mentioning that the wavetable style oscillator also only lives in slot 1. So you can't have a granular in slot 1 and a wavetable in slot 2. They can only live in slot 1. To get this into like granular mode, we go to slot 1 and we choose with the type knob, turning it all the way to the right till we get to wavetable and beyond. Oh yeah. So that's sample, and sample is the first of the 8 modes. We were hearing a rave piano, which is very pleasing to me. And you might want to change the sound. Now, there are 48 sounds that come with this thing. We can't change those sounds to be different things yet. If I hold Shift and turn the type dial, then I see this screen that says samples, and I can scroll all the way to the end, and I start with 808 drive. These are like bass, and then there are chords, keys, percussion, sequences, sound effects, strings, synth, vocal, and wind. That's nice. Bass. I believe the kids call that an 808 these days. That's nice. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Piano. It's like rhythmic, it's got sounds, it's not just like a single hit. Like field recordings and sounds like this, which really textural. Guitars. Yes, very interesting. String stuff. Oh, yes. And then, now that's just a taste. Obviously, the whole point of this thing, granularity, is the fact that you can turn them into tones. So, for example, here's word riff. Getting naughty. Getting naughty. Getting naughty. Getting naughty. Getting naughty. So, we have a sound. Let's see what we can do with it. In mode 1, samples, we can play back samples forwards, backwards, choose how much of them we play, change the start position, and also loop them. So quite traditional things, if anything in electronic music can be said to be traditional. Editing any of the granular modes is exactly like editing any other kind of synth engine on the MiniFreak or the MicroFreak. You've got 3 controls, and generally wave corresponds to start time, and then timbre and shape do different things. Start time allows us to start the sample playing back partway through. So you can just grab that bit, for example. If you want to be like Orbital. By the way, do you ever know you can hold Shift and do that? It's nice, isn't it? It just is like an oscillator balance control. a little snippet of a person's voice as part of a sound. Very cool. Like that. Let's just move it back. So we had the ability to change the start time. The second control is the amount it plays back for. And then if we go the other way, then the sample starts playing backwards. And to hear the sound, I need to move the start point forwards. So we have something to go back on. Now we're playing it backwards. And if we turn on loop and turn up the loop, then we are starting to loop a section of the sound. And we can start to build a tone. So here I've added a second oscillator and I've tuned that to match the Granular engine. So you can build these things that are part samples, part synthesis. Very cool. Very cool. Let's hold shift and pick a different sound. Oof. That is cool. What is that sound? These like sequence sounds, they have like a little like chord kind of sequence baked in. Add some effects to that. Cool. Like, if you ever mess with samplers, you know, I love making synth sounds that have sample components in them. You know, so good. It's textural, it's weird, and I like it. So let's start from an initial sound. And then we move along to past sample, we get to cloud grains. So what cloud grains is it's playing the sample, but instead of playing it with just one playhead, it has multiple playheads, which you control with the density knob. So as I turn up density, more copies of the sound are being played from 2 grains to a maximum of 50. And chaos is changing multiple things at the same time. The size of the grain, chances of random density amounts, the starting point, a little bit of pitch variance, all baked in to this one knob called chaos. So it adds this kind of quivering sound. We can move the start position. This is going to sound even more bonkers if we perhaps return to that word riff that we were playing before. So we suddenly have like this little like dancing array of our sounds. And then if we blend in an oscillator, we have this ability to freeze and kind of quiver, freeze and quiver. And that freezing is what helps you turn a sound into a tone. So it sounds more like a traditional like oscillator, but it is intrinsically built from the sound of a human voice. imparts its own kind of weirdness, you know, uniqueness. And turn off that chaos. But there you get this kind of held tone. Awesome. You can come down and like, I'm doing a lot of pad stuff. Yeah, that's cool. It's super cool. And obviously every sound is going to do different things, right? What are these chords? Man, they're like whole sort of kind of like intros to like drum and bass tracks. Some car plus from the second oscillator. Whole cinematic intro, Zero Man. Cliff Martinez would like it. Add some effects. Mate, it's just really good. It's really good. That's why this is really good. So that was cloud grains. The next one is called hit grains. Hit grains is different to cloud grains in that it repeats the granular like cycle. And it does it in this re-triggering way rather than this jumbled up cloudy way. We can change the shape of the thing that is triggered and so get these kind of interesting like choppy rhythmic and soft rhythmic things. Nice. What would that sound like with a different sound? That's ace. Now that control timbre just feels ripe to me to be modulated. And of course the designers know that timbre 1 is a thing that you probably do want to modulate, so I could literally just go like that. Now I'm using LFO 1 to modulate timbre. Let's pick a more like tonal sound, like well, maybe one of these synth basses. Oh! Really crackers. You hear how it's like speeding up and slowing down, but it's always staying at the correct pitch. So we can build a tone from it. That's hit grains. It's good to hit your grains. Okay, the next one is called frozen grains. After you've hit your grains, you should freeze your grains. And frozen grains specializes in basically doing really fast granularity that will sound like ice according to the instructions. So if we take our piano, aha, yes, nice. So we were getting kind of frozen sounds with the cloud like granular mode, but the ice mode is kind of dialed in so that you always stay within that range. You know? It's this sort of, it's the fact that basically it's looping a really small part of the waveform always, that is giving it this cohesive sound, whereas the cloud mode, the grains spread further apart. You hear more diverse parts of the sound that makes it sound less frozen and more gobbledy. And so this middle control is size, and it starts from 110% to 500% sized grains, so very big and overlapping, but within a very small, narrow, like, field, looping the same part of the sample over and over and over. This shape control is here called chaos, and it is apparently adjusting the start point and the gain of each grain. So you can hear they're coming in and out, and it is indeed picking different parts. But what this specializes is in freezing. So if we take something that is very rhythmic, do you remember that there's like SEQ ones, sequence? Those ones are going to sound ace because they have like a melodic progression. Do you hear what's happening? Because there's a melodic progression built into the thing by moving the hearing a different kind of point of the riff. And what I might want to do is modulate that. So let's come over here and send LFO1 to control the wave. And I've got LFO1 in like sample and hold mode. Put hold on, get a metric boatload of reverb. Blend in the other oscillator. Hey. Let's go for broke here. Like a whole like Emily Sprague tune. We need all that modular stuff for. Yeah, that's frozen grains. You're freezing part of the sound. It's really good for like zoning in on a component and building sounds from it. And from things that have a progression baked into the sample, then you're able to like hop from one bit to another. And then by holding down a sound, you're going to sound like there's this whole piece of music happening. So the next mode is called Skan. And what it is doing is it's scanning progressively through the sound, but we can slow that down so that it becomes like a way of kind of time stretching our sound. So let's choose a sound, and I think there's a neuro sound that the children enjoy. That's the sound. That's the sound they enjoy. Whoa. Yeah, it's a cool sound. And so what it's saying on the screen is the speed. That is saying X1. So this is it playing in real time. Now, notice that it plays through at the same speed no matter where I play on the keyboard. So I can play it at different pitches, it stays at the same speed. I can play it at different speeds and it will stay at the same pitch. If that makes sense. So I can play it at half speed and it's the same pitch. Or I can slow it right down to a complete standstill and then move through it. So Skan's ability is to slow sounds down or speed them up, and to do so independent of pitch and time in a really cool way. So we can turn this into like a sort of pad, and then once again I can pick some weird sounds to go with it. Really like evolving crazy things. can go faster than real time. And so you could use this to create like components of sound. Like, for example, if you took like, I don't know, like the 808 drive. I mean, this is perhaps a terrible example. Wow, actually the 808 sounds pretty good as a sort of pad. That isn't what I expected at all. What I'm thinking is that if you have kind of, you know, like a chiff or like an onset sort of sound, so that you've got a attack portion that has a component, you can do that with this because you can speed something up so that something that lasted like a few seconds happens in the space of like a split second and is like the attack portion of a sound. Does that make sense? But actually, I take it all back because just making a weird like major chord out of an 808 seems possible with this too. And there is the third control, chaos, and it's doing loads of weird things. It's setting multiple things. It changes grain size. It's the chances of density to change. The start point is varied a little bit. The gain of each grain is randomized, and the envelope parameter is also transformed, and there is also a small pitch. Wow. It really turns like an 808 into like a howling kind of noise source. Have that lower down in the sound. That's nuts, isn't it? Flip. What flipping Nora, like an 808, like a kick drum, a boom, is now like a weird freaky texture. Actually sounds like way cooler than I would expect. That's cool. Nuts. So that's Skan. It moves through the sound fast or slower, and as we've seen with this chaos knob, it lets you texturize and quiverize a sound till it becomes like a noise, but a noise that's built intrinsically from what the sound is built from. So you'd expect each one to sound different, which I'm sure they do. That's the chords being used as a... So it's just ace, isn't it? Yes. Very cool. The next mode is called particle. Particle's a bit like the hit grains in that it creates rhythmic things. So this is using that chord. Change the start point. And you hear it kind of repeat. It doesn't have that same sort of snap, but the shape control does all manner of lunacy. So it changes density and the pitch in a non-linear manner, it is described. So before, as we were hearing with like the chaos that was happening in the previous mode, it's like, it's more of that. And it's not sort of tuned, so it perhaps might work better with some like... Let's go back to this word riff, because that's something that we kind of understand what it should sound like. So here it is. If we listen to it repeating, it doesn't sound like there's like perfect repetition, like there's some randomness built into that. It's like got drama, like that. Bit of chorus. To me, this randomness feels like it's going to be ideal for making kind of weird things like textural sound effect stuff. So if you move to like SFX, indeed, like taking field recordings and then running them through this is going to be more a textural thing than a pitch thing, because the pitch is getting randomized. So goodbye pitch. Pretty freaky. Still nice to have that repetition, and it's softer than the hit grain. If we change it to hit grains, do we find that the hit grains are really percussive. Particle grains are softer. But it does go a bit freaky pitch-wise. Nice. And so the last two are more rhythmic. This one is called Lick, and Lick is designed to basically repeat rhythmically. You hear there's a kind of like volume variance, like a nice sort of... It will always repeat with the same sort of pattern, 1/16 relative to the tempo. And then this shape control is like grain size, start time, pitch and gain, varying a bit for a bit more variation. But the idea is that it basically repeats something just every 16th beat, you know. You hear that each note has got its own different start time. So if I go start them at the same time, they'll sound more unified. But you can do this thing of going... And of course we can blend in. So it's this kind of like rhythmic, choppy kind of sound. Always like at 1/16 of the built-in tempo. I think that's right. So if we were to change the tempo of the machine, that should change too. Hey, guess what? It does. So it's based on the tempo of like 126 here. Have we got this synced up? There we go. So what I did is I just clocked the MiniFreak to the T8 as I did in my other MiniFreak video, and you can hear that they, hopefully, are in time. That's cool. It's like rhythmic. Huh. If you change the sound, that's the kalimba. A different sound, that's cool. Mallow octave. Yes, that is the mallow octave sound. That's a nice one. I'll have a tempo synced one, thanks mate. Change the start time, just not even sure what that's doing. It's obviously a different part of the sample. It sounds great. that was lick. The final mode is called Raster, which is similar to lick, except that you can vary the tempo, so that will be interesting to try. If we change the type. Mate, what is even going on there? That's amazing. Let's go back to the word riff. Now let's turn off the effects. So again, we have tempo synced repeats, but we get to choose the time division that they're being synced to. We have a randomness control, which does multiple things at the same time, start, pitch, and gain. And we can adjust the start time. And this should also mean that we can do kind of rhythmic stuff, but a bit more at different time bases. Let's try just sequencing something. So if I go here, You've enjoyed yourself in this little foray into the 8 modes that are in this thing, on top of the wavetable mode that's added and all of the other things that this does, the noise engineering modes. The reason I'm happy to always talk about the MiniFreak is that I actually don't think there is a better deal in synths. Find me a synth that does as many things as this does. With as much vibe. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time. Bye.